I need to check and figure out. I've lost my um, so the stream should be coming back up shortly. Do you mind checking Twitch and
Yeah,
seeing
no,
if it's there?
looks like you're back up as far as I can tell.
Okay, that was exciting. Let's not do that again.
I thought it
Um,
was highly entertaining.
the only problem is I have apparently lost my chat controls and my view controls inside of OBS, which that's great. Not. Apparently, OBS is not hip to the idea of just force terminating your session. Who would have thunk? Let's see. Uh, do you see my video? I think you do.
I do.
Okay. Let's see. There. Okay, so I'm a little confused. The only thing I can imagine that did that to us is this. Now, how bad is this if I just kick it off? So let's start with this, right? Debugger launch is bad. So we're going to put a breakpoint in front of it. Because I am still a little confused as to exactly how we triggered that case.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Maybe I'm just not as familiar with WPF, but I'm not seeing the sort of loop that would guess hitting create window.
Well, I
over
don't.
and over.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna watch a few things, right? Because I should hit there. I should hit there. I should then hit here. I should hit start service. Start service grabs our current process, starts the service using the process ID as a key. This service constructor doesn't do anything overly fancy. It starts a named pipe with gRPC and returns it. And we hold on to it for the purpose of disposing of it on exit. We're going to try this again and hope that my world doesn't end. Preemptively, I'm opening up the task kill, fixing your command.
I did get back to the fixed one in the end.
Okay, so we're gonna have that open just in the event a problem occurs, perhaps, and I'm gonna preemptively open Task Manager just because I don't trust it. And we're gonna launch again with debugging, and I am targeting the right project. Whew, dodged a bullet. Okay, good news.
I'm excited to see how this goes.
We hit main, right? This main is a thing. It gets invoked first. Well, second-ish. Close to first. Module initializers get to win, but, right? Typically, main goes first. We create a custom application. We call run, which is a blocking call which should trigger the on startup. We come into here. We call base on startup. We call test start service. We come in here, new service, great, return. This isn't doing anything fancy. That's literally just opening the name pipe. We come down here and we call start. Oh. Right. So here's the problem.
I think
we are now this executable. I see the loop.
Yeah, I see the loop now.
Let's terminate. This launches, and oh boy. Okay, so let's not do this. Why were we including... Okay, so what do we actually need this thing to do? We just need the managed client. So I think rather than start app, how about we do connect to app? That sounds a lot better. Connect to app. because there's a convenient overload that says connect to myself. Let's do that. And then I think we can actually legitimately debug this. Wow, that took way too long to get to a I will debug my original problem. Okay, so I'm comfortable with that breakpoint. I'm comfortable with that breakpoint. Go.
I know you said you did that this wasn't working yet, but I didn't realize how serious you were.
Like I said, some of my best ideas come late at night. Man, I want to figure out where my... if anyone's familiar with OBS and where the Restream.io secondary windows are to repop them, I would love to know the answer to that question. Because as far as I can tell, they appear to be gone. And I'm going to need to figure out how to get them back. Okay. And I assume they were probably custom windows pointed to URLs, which is unfortunate. So anyway, connect to app should not do anything. It should open up a named pipe. We're going to step over. Huzzah. Okay. Now, in theory, we can do something. Insult to injury. I'm going to kill execution real quick. Just in the favor of not shooting myself in the foot, I'm going to just delete that line. And instead, put a breakpoint here instead. Because I believe we should now be in a state where we can run and get all the way to this point. Okay, so F5, huzzah, we got all the way in. Okay, and we're going to just blind run to cursor. Okay, so we get inside, we're inside the dispatcher, we're on the GUI thread because we're doing all kinds of UI stuff, right? We come in here, assemblies to load, we've got a couple of them, they're both pointed, hard-coded, I will point out, at the material design DLLs, great. We're going to load them, and apparently I can't type, could not load file or assembly. Do I not know my own path? Material design and Xaml toolkit. What is wrong with this path? So, copy, paste. I'm really starting to question how any of this code worked on my other machine. The number of bugs that we're finding in this is so significant as to make me seriously question the sanity of the guy who apparently wrote it. I don't have...
I think we've been trying to hit your unit test now for quite some time.
Well, and all of this is just... Because the part that bothers me is I was debugging this on my other machine and now realizing that I was pointed at the wrong file the whole time.
I'd be concerned as well, yeah.
If I spent all of my time debugging because I loaded up a stale DLL, I'm going to be really annoyed. Because okay, so load assembly. Look at that. It loaded the assembly. Load the assembly. It loaded the assembly. Thank goodness. Okay, we get to the configs, right? This is where things start to get interesting. So we have to load up some namespaces for the XAML, right? So we figure out the XAML prefix, right? And we jump in to load XAML. And things start to get a little bit interesting in here, right? So this started off as a very simple method where all I wanted to do was load XAML with a XAML reader load call. And then I started adding code. And then it got worse. So I figured out that I probably need a parser context because I'm going to be effectively arbitrarily loading random stuff, which means I'm going to have to tell it something about the referenced assemblies. Because normally the compiler can put in the appropriate attributes inside of your WPF app based upon what you reference, except for there are no hard references. This is effectively being loaded at runtime, so I get to do it. And as it turns out, redoing what the compiler does for you is not straightforward. So first of all, the default namespace for WPF isn't even included. So let's go ahead and include that because we might want that one. We've got those prefixes from before, so let's go ahead and add those in. So our dictionary that we've got in here now has at least a couple things, empty string and material design set in there, which is great. We've got a load context. Come on, step. And so what we're going to do, and this is the part that I'm not actually even sure is correct, right? So the whole point of this, and let's just step all the way down, because if this works, I'll then explain what I was trying to do, because apparently when you reference the wrong assembly, things don't work. Okay. Thank goodness it blows up in the same way it did before. Xaml parse exception. Okay, so let's go back and recall. A long time ago, we had discussed loading this block of Xaml.
Correct.
Right? This is a resource dictionary that matches this resource dictionary here, right? Because I literally copied and pasted it to make sure I didn't botch anything, with one exception. You will note that I added the XML namespace. Oh, nope, that shouldn't matter. I added the XML namespace material design because normally those namespaces would be included up here, except for those things don't exist down below. Oh, I'm wondering if I need to include all three. Because normally when you load this resource dictionary, it's being able to load effectively with the context of these namespaces being included. And so I'm now curious if that would do it. So we're gonna give that a shot, because I'm just noticing that is a difference. Thank you for being a good duck.
The very best.
I realized I asked for people to tell me if they knew something about loading up the Restream.io stuff, except for I'm also realizing I can't bloody see chat.
No one has come to your rescue quite yet.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you. I will let you monitor that for me, because I'm probably going to call it here in about 10 minutes now that my frustration level has gone through the roof. And I'm mildly annoyed with myself. Okay, so this guy effectively matches there, but he's unable to load it. That's where I know that I'm at. And my assumption, and again, this is a horrible assumption, this XAML type mapper, this guy here, right? He is supposed to be able to do the mapping to tell you how to go and look up types from assemblies. That is his purpose in life, is to load types and map things from the XML namespaces into real CLR namespaces. Again, this is my what I think I know based upon reading through docs. And in general, what happens is this XML definition attribute gets created for you by the compiler. But again, we don't have hard references, so that's not true. And we need to go through and set some appropriate assembly paths on this guy so that he can work appropriately. This is the working assumption. Now, the part that gets weird is I don't know, given all of this stuff, if I'm loading things correctly. You'll note I've even gone to the effort of having this assembly resolve event, because I am not 100% convinced that I don't also need to do assembly load here and do the reflection load of the assembly. The problem is this doesn't put it into a load context that I can clean up, which cleanup may be a pretty optional thing. I'm starting to think that given the state of WPF, there's probably not a reasonable way I could clean up and reset, and I probably just need a term, like this method almost needs to be a one-shot rather than called create window. It probably should be called like init app, and you only get to call it once, then terminate your process and restart. Right? Because there's certain things that it's going to load up and do that there is no return path from. So that was the attempt there. This was going to be my next attempt, is inside of here, I think what I know is that if I don't pass a parser context, it will then try and resolve stuff based on the assembly args. Yeah, so it wants to, so where did you come from? Where did you... So inside of load Xaml, it's trying to load the resources, which is fine. So here, I'll pin that variable. So the resources don't matter because they don't exist. So we'll let that guy go. Same query. Same query. We're just going to keep going through, and then it still fails to load. Let's see. Specified class name test window doesn't match actual root instance. Kenny!
You made the epiphany noise.
No! No, I got past this line of code. I crashed here. It worked.
So you're telling me if you point at the correct assembly when you go debugging, it works better?
And I don't need to do all this parser context garbage. Like, literally, all of this goes away. All of that goes away. Okay. Okay, so if what I understood there is I've got an issue with my XAML for my window because it's unhappy about this X class type, right? Because it's going to try to map it to a test window. Test window no exist. It go boom. I think I can just drop the X class and get away with it. We will confirm that because, like, in general, your windows are supposed to have code behinds, right? But there's no rule saying it has to. So I'm kind of curious. I get to hear. Okay, so I'm hitting my other breakpoints. Go, 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 go. Kenny, Kenny, Kenny. I have a resource dictionary. It's got 2 merged dictionaries in it. Oh, I am so excited. You
I would
don't
like to
seem to
claim
understand
50%
how long.
of the 50% of the credit for having been here.
I think you deserve it. You don't seem to understand how many hours I may have spent debugging this stupid load XAML method and reading through docs, only to realize that the solution was delete my code. Okay, so let's go here. Kenny! Kenny!
It's working.
There's a window. There's a button. You ready? You ready? Window.show.
Why'd you hit this breakpoint?
Because it tried to load an assembly. Data contract serialization resources. Okay? I don't care about dot resource. Any assembly that ends in dot resources, I don't care about. This is just the built-in localization. Failed. The given assembly name or code base was invalid. The original exception was okay. So hold on. Failed to load material design colors DLL. The given assembly name or code base was invalid. So the first question being, does that assembly even exist here? That's the first and most logical question. It does. The given assembly name or code base was invalid. So something is wrong with the colors load. I wish this window needs to be bigger for me. This window needs to be bigger. Visual Tree Service Line 319. 319. I'm a little curious how that, given that I'm openly diaper patterning the exceptions, I'm a little confused, especially an IO exception that is certainly catchable, right? I'm also a little curious how I got down to here and then somehow threw up here.
Is that an async call?
That's a good question. It so it is an async method. We are inside of a dispatcher invoke async. And honestly, some of this again, I think I'm going to rename this and not bother with like these clears and whatnot, because I think what this. So okay, we're going to try a couple things. So I would like to do this. I would like to do this. Down here, if args dot name dot ends with resources, right? So I literally could care less about every single one of you. Actually, how about equals equals false, right? Fine, I will null prop into here. All right, so that's the only breakpoint I care about. Because resource assemblies I don't care about. The prefixes don't even matter anymore. The load context I'm fairly confident doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is this assembly resolve and the assembly load calls. Okay, let's try this one more time. I want to see that window launch. That would make me so very, very happy. Okay, so we're loading an assembly. This is the WPF assembly. We're loading the colors assembly. Oh, it does throw an exception. The assembly name or codebase was invalid. What is wrong about this? So, to be clear...
So this actually exists. We've established that.
I'm just...
Never had to manually load assemblies before, so I'm a little curious what the issue is here.
The code base... Okay, so I can confirm... Wait a minute. Okay, the mode just weirded me out seeing the archive flag on those, but okay. They all apparently have it, including the one that worked. So, I do... I'm a little surprised. So let's check a couple things here. First of all, I'm going to make a sweeping assumption that it was compiled for .NET Core, but so hold on, maybe that's a reasonable thing to check, right? So dnspy. Nope, don't go away, dnspy. Come back. Delete all the things. So come here, dnspy. Open that assembly, please. Let's just take a quick gander and make sure there's nothing weird. So it is the one that was compiled for NetCore 3.1. See, here is where you would get your, where I was pulling out the XML namespace definitions. Clearly not needed. This was a debug build. Aside from it looks like we may be specifying the wrong title and product on here.
I wouldn't expect that to crash you.
I would not expect it to crash me either. I am wondering if part of the issue is, and I'm going to go try this real quick. Let's just invert the order of these calls. Comma there, rid of the comma there. Get Karnak open. Because colors really should be loaded first because themes takes a dependency on colors. I don't think the order of loading should matter until it comes time to launch something. But as we've seen so far tonight, I can be wrong in spectacular ways. Let's see. So I think we're just going to get rid of those. I think we're going to get rid of this. Right? And honestly, we shouldn't be doing any of that, right? None of that cleanup stuff should happen. Again, this method is, I think, quickly getting to the point where it's going to be a one-shot, more like a init app rather than create window, so it needs a rename. Okay, let's try this one more time. I am very... So we're going to load the colors assembly first. Step. Straight to a catch. The given assembly name or codebase is invalid. Okay, I would like to know more about this error, please. Yeah, Chrome, I'm sure you're a little unhappy with me. Because I'm pretty sure... What triggers this? I am... oh. Okay. So that...
Interesting.
So that could just be that I'm a moron and using the wrong API. I would accept that explanation. That would make sense. And could get us going a little closer. Okay, so there's that. So we are now loading the colors assembly. Step over. Okay, that's better. There. Okay, so we step. This is interesting that it failed to load. Huh? Didn't I literally just load this assembly?
I had thought so.
Could not create unknown type. Well, that... Okay, so... Huh? Assembly. A gets there. Right. Okay, quick and dirty. Private read-only list. Well, actually, I think we can just query it, can't we? Assembly. Can't we get calling assembly, load with partial, reflection only, load from. Oh, okay. Fine then. Private read-only list. Assemblies gets new list, right? Okay, so we will just add you to a list. Assemblies.add. And let's see. Return actually var rv because I want to look at it. Assemblies first or default. Get name. There may be some parsing and whatnot that needs to happen in here, but I think, at least for the material design libraries, that should match.
This feels like duct tape. A big old band-aid.
Oh. Turns out you have to spell add with D's rather than S's. Okay, so we have 2 assemblies. And then args. So I'd like to think that should match. It found it. Came in here looking for W. Oh, the name doesn't end with Oh, dang it. Okay, fine. My breakpoint is stupid. But we'll just do this a couple times until we get there. Resources, resources. Okay, so that loaded. Okay, so run to window. Show. That's a resource. That's a satellite resources assembly. Shouldn't be needed. Shouldn't be needed. Shouldn't be needed. Shouldn't be needed.
That's a button.
This is a button, and I can click it. Okay, we should stop.
It doesn't get much better than that.
I'm gonna claim like I have made a button appear. Okay, so aside from horrible hacks around this assembly loading and resolution bits, which I think are absolutely horrible in every stretch of the imagination.
But they do work.
Well, but see, I'm wondering if because I had to return the assemblies here, I'm wondering if I actually need to do the assembly load. Like, I'm wondering if I could take the assemblies, throw them into a load context, just have a static resolver that looks at the current load context and then pulls them out of there, right? So, things to note. In old school C#, and old school being .NET framework rather than core, right? You were not once you load an assembly, there is no concept of unload. It's a one-way street, which is problematic if you have things that conflict, right? So to work around that, what you had was app domains. So you could spin app domains, and app domains were pretty much separate apps for all intents and purposes, right? If you wanted 2 app domains to talk to each other, you had to do some work with like pipes and send stuff back and forth. Like they were effectively separate things, but you could spin up separate app domains, have effectively this isolated sandbox where you could do stuff, and then more importantly, you could throw it away. And they worked great, right? The problem is they were heavy and they weren't very cross-platformy. .NET Core comes around and they realize that the primary reason why people use app domains are for like plugin type situations, effectively where people want to load in assemblies but give them some level of isolation. So they're like, okay, well, what we can do is we can give you guys that functionality, but we're not re-implementing the app domain API. That is, there was a lot of yucky stuff in there. So they gave you load context instead, which are they're kind of, if you think of them like a lightweight app domain, that's kind of true. You don't have the strict separation boundaries, but you do have these load areas where you can load some stuff, do some work in it, and then just throw the thing away, right? And effectively clean up. So you get it very effectively handles like the plugin type scenario, right? And there's a NuGet package that I found recently where somebody built effectively an abstraction layer for doing plugins and would shell out to either app domains or load context depending on where you were, and it looked very cool. I haven't dug into it. So that's the reason for all of this. The problem being, and I suspect the big kicker, is how this XAML reader works. This thing's ugly, and this is one of the hardest areas, because you'll note, so, I don't even, whoa. I think when I force reboot, I lost some of my Visual Studio settings. That's exciting. I will have to go back and fix those. Because this guy's got a lot of static stuff where he builds up and derives context and does all kinds of weird. So let me rephrase. When I say context in the purpose of a XAML reader, I mean a parser context, not a load context. Different things. Because this guy loads and looks at the assemblies and pulls stuff off of the attributes and all this other jazz. Which is why, clearly, calling the load, he does something with the assemblies where he tries to build stuff via reflection-y thingies, right? And shells out to the current app domain, right? So this is where it gets weird, right? I just said app domains don't exist. Hey, look, system app domain, right? And so it shells out to go through and pull this to be able to find those assemblies. So there's something weird, and there's some coupling there that I'm not fully sure I understand. So there's that. But more importantly, this works well enough that I'm checking it into my branch. Because this sounds like a great time to stop. Got showing a window working. And I think I'm quickly getting to the point where not having a NuGet package is being problematic. So I might have to just start extracting this library out into its own NuGet package. And I may get really fancy and go with GitHub Actions because I want to try GitHub Actions over DevOps just to see how it goes. So if you want to learn GitHub Actions, that'd be fun.
I haven't actually looked at it at all.
They make them look easy, and I don't know how easy is easy, but there's kind of pre-canned templates you can grab where, like, the easy case of I've got a library, I'd like to produce it as a NuGet package is like few lines of YAML and you're done, which looks pretty slick. So especially when you can produce it and push it out to their own feed and be done, it's like, whoa. That's kind of cool. So I'm curious what level of control I get over it. Like, can I do I get the control of being able to trigger off like nightly releases and that kind of thing? So I've seen a lot of cool stuff in there, and I just don't know how fully fleshed out it is. So, but I think that is probably where I'll call it tonight, since it is after 11, and you weren't even going to stay up this late, and so I've now kept you a lot later. Not. You have to work in the morning.
So do you, technically.
That's true.
I'll make up for it by being tired.
Yeah, that's true. Cup is empty. Error. So, well, thank you everyone for coming and hanging out. Sorry that I completely botched the stream earlier. It's not often that you get to fork bomb yourself, especially while on a stream. And now I get to go and try and fix my OBS and figure out where all my settings went on Visual Studio, because apparently force rebooting. I'm glad some people had fun with it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Misery loves company, and so I was glad to have company for the misery. But yeah, and I am hoping to be able to go through and do some ad hoc streams every so often. So if people are ever interested in doing pairing things or just jumping on and having fun, including you, Kenny, I'm always happy. I prefer having someone at minimum to talk to and explain my thought process to, because the whole concept of rubber duck debugging, for people who haven't seen it, rubberduckdebugging.com, right? It totally works. Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't. And if you have people telling you it doesn't, go tell the duck, right? The duck listens very patiently and calmly, and explaining it somehow magically fixes all the problems. And clearly what I needed several nights ago was a good duck, and I did not have one. So thank you, Kenny, for fixing all of my problems.
Glad I could help. I thought I would be able to, WPF stuff, I knew it was not my strong area at all. But I figured C# would be able to hang. I didn't realize we were going to be doing assembly loading, which I've never had to do before.
Oh, come on. I've made you do all kinds of weird stuff with C#. You did unsafe pointer enumerables. How bad could assembly loading be?
That's probably not that bad.
Yeah, it's not horrible. It's just one of those lesser used APIs because most people don't do crazy stuff.
There we go.
I
Yeah.
am not one of those people. So, with that, I will tell everybody thank you very much. Happy coding, and we will see everyone next time.